All right, I'm gonna do the Joe Rogan, the 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. What's up, Antonio?
Not much, man. How you doing, Andre?
Dude, I'm doing fine. I actually don't remember when the last time I talked to you was. I
I
think.
think it was like all the way back at you remember Jacob when he was throwing that tournament all the way down in like
Holy
was
moly!
it was it Modesto or no, not Modesto. It was
You talking about JTF?
yeah.
Dude, shout out to JTF. He was my first sponsor ever.
That guy sponsored DP and Mike and Melvin for a little bit and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
finally got them out of their cave.
Dude, shout out to that guy. Do you know how he's doing?
I don't 1000% know, but I'm pretty sure he's doing okay. I'll like casually see him like randomly post on Facebook like every once in a blue moon, and then he's just like gone for a few months, and then it just like randomly pops back up. I'm like, oh, there he is. So I think he's doing good. He's got himself a lady friend, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, everything looks like it's going well. But then again, I haven't really talked to him in a hell of a long time. So
Yeah, I wonder if he's still doing like esports and stuff.
I don't really know
Yeah,
100% because I don't know if it ever really worked out for him because running esports is like a really huge like logistic thing, and then like if
yeah.
things like end up like going sideways or something, sometimes you just have to like fucking trash the entire thing, and it's just like fuck.
Yeah, I think like monetization strategies in esports are like really evolving. Like even
Mhm.
now I'm seeing stuff on Twitter about like people starting to ditch the whole jersey thing cuz I always thought it was kind of tacky.
Yeah,
Um
I kind of liked the whole. I thought it was cool for a while, but like because I have a few shirts that like have my like tag on it and stuff
mhm,
like that, and it's like they look cool, but at the
yeah.
same time, it's like I don't know. It's just not my style. I kind of I like more casual fit
Yeah,
to it.
and the teams like Cloud9 and CLG are going more toward like casual fit instead of because like in esports you don't particularly need a jersey. Like it's not physically taxing to the point where you're gonna sweat. Like yeah, there's some physical like ability like energy being released there, but it's nothing too crazy. So I think like sweaters and stuff, hoodies are like really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I personally unfortunately I'm one of the people that like sweat quite a bit, which is usually why like whenever I like go to a tournament, I always have like at least like two spare shirts, some
Ah,
deodorant,
wow.
like mouthwash, like floss, all the stuff. Like I'll straight just be ready. I remember I was at I think it was at the SAC Arcadian 3 or something
Hmm.
like that. Or it was either that or like the NorCal Arcadian 3 or something like that. And Dallas was yeah, I was playing friendlies, and he came up to me with his brother Anthony, and he's like, "Hey Antonio, do you have like any deodorant or anything on you?" And his brother Anthony just like straight starts laughing. He's like, "Why would he just like randomly have like deodorant on him?" I'm just like, I just open up my bag. I'm like, "Yeah, I got you. You need like spare shirt? You need like any mouthwash, like floss or anything like that?" He's like, "No, just deo." And like his brother's looking at Dallas like, "What the fuck?"
Dang.
So I try to be as prepared as possible.
Dude, I first met you at like I think it was SAC PM.
Yeah, was that A1?
I
Yeah.
believe it was A1. I don't know if that was the first time I met you, but
Yeah.
I remember playing the best version of PM, by the way, which was PM. I think it was already PM 3.0 back then, right?
Yeah, because that's when I was doing the whole Mewtwo thing, and I
Yeah.
think it was like 3.0, 3.02, because 3.0 was when they just released Roy and Mewtwo, and that's when they were both busted. Well,
Yeah.
Mewtwo at least.
And there honestly so many characters were busted that I could not really figure out who was the best character. A lot of people
Yeah,
thought Mewtwo was because of just Emu Killer dominating on the East Coast, but there were so
yeah.
many candidates. I know Ness was super broken. Link was crazy. Mario was really good.
I think
Um,
Mewtwo King was talking about how like Link at one point was like straight just like top three because like he had like AGT like recovery, just
yeah,
insane fucking kill power, just utility out the woo wah. It was crazy.
I mean I very vividly remember. I don't remember who I was playing against, but like Boomerang did like 18%, and
Oh
I
my
did,
god, and
and
it,
it comboed
it's
into itself.
yeah, and it's set up for like if you get the sweet spot of it, like it would just have so much hits done at
Yeah,
like mid to high percent that it would just be like a setup for like a down air,
right.
uh,
Yeah.
anything.
So I vividly remember playing. I think it was a Link Dodo. I don't remember who it was against, But I played a Link Ditto and I did 4 boomerangs into up air and I killed someone. Dude, it was so funny.
Yeah,
And
that game. Oh man, I miss that game. But whenever I play it like casually, like I'll randomly like just see some people that are playing it like some of the random parties that I'll go to, like old friends and stuff like that, who don't really like go out to a lot of stuff and whatnot. And I play it for about an hour. It's fun for the hour, and then after an hour, I start getting like slightly tilted because I'm just like, oh, this game.
are you
It's
talking
like
about like
everybody.
the latest PM
Oh,
or just the old? Like, do people still play the old PM?
I don't think they still play the old PM anymore. The last time I played PM, I don't think they had come out with the legacy build or whatever the community came out with. I think it was still like, it was the one that had the unfinished characters that had Lynn and fucking
Right.
Isaac Golden Sun. But I know that the community came out with the legacy build that's like more finished, and like they gave like a bunch of characters new stuff. Like Bowser, for instance, has like a projectile fireball that like is off of a charge time or
Oh,
something
that's
like that.
sick.
Yeah, so he can like, after like I think it's like 10, 15 seconds or something like that,
Mm.
his body starts glowing and he can just straight shoot a fireball
That's
projectile
sick.
that like, yeah, it's kind of like boomerang, but it's not like nearly as busted.
Yeah.
And the charge time is pretty fair.
Dude, like I still remember like the death of PM. I do want to talk about PM because that's how we met. But
Yeah.
because the fun for me about PM was always trying to find the most broken character. Right, that's the only reason I played it, because I came from melee. I'm like, oh, this has melee mechanics, and I'm pretty good at melee, so I'm just gonna go in, find which character I believe is the most broken, and play.
Yeah.
I remember I did beat SFAT in 2.0 with Bowser.
Mm.
Bowser was
Oh my God.
bigger and like up B knocked down at 0 against fast followers. Even Falcon, it knocked him down at 0. And his get up attack was huge and it hit off the ledge. They nerfed Bowser pretty hard in later versions.
That's crazy that you were playing at like 2.0. I started in like 2.5,
Yeah.
2.5, because that's when Ivysaur was
Yeah,
pretty
that was
nuts.
Ivysaur. Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
about to say I'm pretty sure he was far and away the best character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ivysaur was nuts. But yeah, no, for me, like the reason why I like stopped playing it is just because like I was waiting for the game to be like considered a finished product before like
Mm,
I give it like my final like judgment call of whether or not I should stick with it and
yeah.
everything. And then like seeing like the team just kind of abandon it, like regardless of like the risk. Like I get why they left, but it's like that risk was there the
Hmm.
entirety of the project,
Yeah.
and it like took them all the way to the very end to like just stop. And after that, I was just like, I got really frustrated with it, and I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm over this game, and I
Yeah,
just
and
kind of dipped.
there were several contributing factors. First of all, I mean, have you seen? Do you watch Core A Gaming on YouTube? You've seen those
No,
videos, right?
no, no, who's that?
Oh, he's an amazing YouTube channel. Maybe I can link it to you. It's Core A Gaming, and he does like pretty much FGC analysis videos, like tier philosophies, balance, nerfing philosophy. I'll type it out for you in the Discord chat. Core A Gaming. But
Yeah.
he has really good videos. And he did a video on like balancing philosophy and
Hmm.
how developers should want to buff rather than nerf. And if you do nerf a character, you want to buff something about them that will play to their strengths and give them personality.
I think that was like a really big thing for a lot of the players when it came to PM, is just that like a lot of people were kind of like turned off by the whole buffing of the game, because that game like really focused on buffing, which was really nice, but it wasn't, how do I say it? A lot of the players perceived it like, I feel like, incorrectly, because they really wanted it to be, this in between neutral thing, instead of having it to where like these characters are good for a certain reason. Because
Mm-hmm.
it just felt like the entire cast like was viable in its own certain way. Like you had to like, deal with these like matchups that just felt really, 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 really impossible in certain
Mm-hmm.
characters. Like, Mewtwo versus like Ness was ridiculous, or like Captain Falcon versus Mewtwo, where it's just like these characters are both really, really strong and they both destroy each other.
Yeah.
But like in that they both destroy each other, they kind of have their own like unique balance. And instead of just like, not like, because when you think of nerfing, I feel like a lot of players think about like, let's just completely like let's just either remove this or make it so bad to where it's just like not considered a viable option anymore, rather than just like tweaking.
Right. Yeah,
But
and that's the thing too, because we were talking about how characters just destroy each other. In PM 3.0, that was essentially the case because each character was trying to play to their strengths, which were pretty much unbalanced. Each of them were unbalanced in their own way. That's why I couldn't figure out a top one. But I picked Ness because, okay, PK Fire activates on shield. That's really dumb. So I'm just going to use this and abuse this and then use all the other strengths that none of the other Ness players are using.
yeah,
Because I was like, oh, he can do the rising jump from Brawl and the double jump cancel from Melee. That's pretty sick. So I was like, okay,
yeah.
I'm going to use that too.
And Lucas was also like HF Neon. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that was the boy. Like watching the set I watched, Mewtwo King versus Neon, like
Hmm.
Mewtwo versus Luke. That was an insane set. Just being able to like basically have yourself like a little shine in the air with his finger and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool and unique about the character. But like they definitely like started deciding to like drop characters down a little bit. Like for instance, like Mewtwo, like each patch got like a little worse, a little worse, a little worse. But it was never like, you know, oh, this character is no longer playable. Like that character even now is still like probably like a top 10 character.
Yeah. And going back to Corey Gaming's video, you could probably watch it later, but he talked about how when you nerf a character, um, any character, even if they're nerfed in a small way, it takes the joy out of that character. And essentially, the reason why people play fighting games is because of the dopamine of doing something rewarding. And if that strength is taken away and that character is not given anything in return, people are just going to straight up stop playing that character. So that's why the jump from 3.2 to 3.5 was so jarring for everyone, because essentially every character got nerfed and almost no buffs to the characters, because the
Yeah.
PM dev team was like, this game is so hard on power creep that where's it going to go eventually? So we might as well nerf everything to make it quote unquote more balanced. But essentially, it sucked the fun out of so many characters that people were enjoying. And it's like every time I played Ness, I'm like, even if I do play this character, and even if this character's still kind of sick, it still doesn't feel the same as the strength as the power that I had before. You know?
Yeah, and it's just like you could find ways to like nerf characters, like, you know, make like moves have like a little bit more startup or like more recovery or something like that. But you don't take away like the you know, no pun intended, the core of the actual purpose of the move. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you want to like I kind of liked how they nerfed Mewtwo's like teleport to where you couldn't just like teleport and then immediately float out of it. You would have to do an up B while grounded,
Yeah.
and then you could, you know, float out of it, but you'd have to like make sure you're standing so you don't expend one of your jumps. It's like you're not really so much like taking away the fun of it, you're just making it a little bit more limited and not so crushing on certain characters. Because I felt like a lot of times like people really buffed up Emu Killer for the whole, you know, destroying people on East Coast, but like the way I see it, it was just a bunch of, you know, abuse of a mechanic that was just so strong, you know, being able to float omnidimensionally float out of that and then like do a fucking a 30 frame move that you could just float back down to the ground and then float cancel and then reset neutral. It was just
Mm-hmm.
like it was just so ridiculous. And you know, I feel like I don't mean to, you know, make it sound like Emu Killer is not a good player, but there were so many strengths about Mewtwo that just didn't seem like it came from the player themselves.
Right. And what really, like, because there were so many factors that contributed to the death of PM, and
Mhm.
the game wide nerfs were one of them. But also it was the like you said, the risk of the whole CND thing, and
Mhm.
also the fact that Gimmer, VG Bootcamp,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
set the precedent that, okay, because we're Nintendo boys now, we're gonna stop streaming this game. So that was a big contributing factor too. So all those things combined led to its death. And what's
yeah.
crazy to me is that if, in my opinion, if the game wide nerfs didn't happen, like every character was nerfed, um, even if we got to like the current product, which is 3.5 or 3.5 Legacy Edition or whatever,
Mhm.
it's still a great game on its own. Like it's an awesome Smash game, probably arguably more depth than Melee, probably greater matchup webs, more viable characters, and it's probably balanced as far as I know.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, like it doesn't have as much of a community as it used to, obviously, with those contributing factors that you just mentioned. But at the same time, like it's still very much alive. Like obviously, like certain areas are a little bit more skewed. Like if you really want like a huge amount of PM community, you're gonna want to be in Arizona or something like
Right.
that. But
Yeah.
like there are still like other parts of the world that still appreciate it, still play it, still think about the game and I kind of like that, and I do really like the community came together and was just like, you know what, you guys, you left the game, that's fine. You decided to do that, that's cool. We'll pick up where you left off, and we're gonna do the game how we feel the game should be done.
Yeah.
And I respect that type of like that diligence to keep the game alive rather than just being like, this sort of this sort of what is it this negative outlook of just being like, well, the game's dead because the developers decided to like just leave us and we're not capable of doing it on our own. Like they show that they are very much capable and they want the game to continue. And I still see highlights all over YouTube
Yeah.
and videos and stuff like that. It's very alive. It's just a little harder to find.
Right. And for me personally, if I were to host a tournament, if I were to get back into tournaments and host them, I would still host PM side event for sure.
Yeah,
Even
'cause
just
it's just
one
like,
setup.
yeah, because it's just like why not? Like, some people really just want to like find a way to have fun. Like I feel like when you touched on the aspect of like having fun in the game, it's like so many people like put so much time into melee, into PM, if that's the game that they're still playing, that they want to be able to have like a stress relief. That's why sometimes people will just go to a tournament, even if it's melee, and they'll just be like, I'm not even going to care about my results. I'm going to get, intoxicated. I'm going to hang out with friends. I'm going to socialize. I'm going to have myself some fun because, they probably spend like all day practicing in the lab or whatever, stressing, trying to figure out how to better their skills when they kind of forget like that the game starts off like you want to have fun naturally. Like
Yeah.
you don't just come to the game because you're like, I'm good at this game, I'm gonna beat people. Like you're like, this character is really fucking sick, and I think I could represent this character in a way that makes me feel good.
Well, some people do now, especially since esports is so mainstream now.
Mhm.
There are people who will just go into like Smash Ultimate from completely casual to all the way like I want to be the best and I want to go to tournaments and stuff like that. Those type of people do usually burn out quickly, but they are there. They are out there.
Yeah. It's hard, as well, because I feel like Smash in general, because of how loved it is, no matter which game it is, whether it's 64, PM Brawl, Smash 4 Ultimate, whatever version of the game you're playing, is that there's so much depth usually to each game, and there's been so much tech found, so many people that are discovering new things and trying to push the game even further, that it's really jarring to like go into a community like that and try to find like a way to enjoy yourself despite the fact that like everybody around you is really good. Like I remember when I first started playing Melee, I didn't enjoy playing it for a while because I thought the game was too punishing, and the people that were playing it were just so serious. And it's just like, I'd ask people, how long have you been playing? I'd get like answers like, oh, I've been playing for about 5 years. Oh, I've been playing for about a decade. Oh, I've been playing for a few years. And you're just
Yeah.
like, you just got there. And it's just like, that's very demoralizing to play against somebody that's been putting so much of their life into this game. And it's just like, it almost makes you feel insignificant in a way. Like what could a person like myself do? But that's where the right mentality comes into, like, motivation. And for me, my motivation was like, I enjoy this game, and despite the fact that it's hard, and there's so much stuff that you could learn, so many new fun aspects of the game that improve my play. So with the right mentality, you can really use that to your strength. But with a lot of people's mentality, especially ones that are new to like the FGC in general, it's really, really hard to tell a new player that you just have to have experience. So like, okay, well, how much experience? And it's like probably a few years. Not a lot of players like that answer.
Well, there's levels to this, right? Like obviously, like if someone's, it depends on someone's goals. If someone's goal is to win a local, then there's probably someone that at their locals who's been playing 4 to 5 years or maybe more, and they're extremely good and they place well at majors. And if they want to win a local, they have to at least beat that guy. If their goal is to be the best, I would say at least 4 to 5 years of constant grinding and constant smart work and self-improvement. Like in my eyes, I mean, obviously my boy is Spark. And he's someone who I've seen from the very beginning, and he's someone who, like, he has something that most players don't, which is learning properly. Like, he probably grinds the same amount, maybe more than most people. Actually, definitely more than most people. But not only that, but he knows how to grind properly. He knows how to learn properly. He knows how to analyze his videos, and he gets Drug Fox to help him too. So, like, all those things combined, in my eyes, creates a player that can potentially be the best, and he's shown it. He's beaten top players left and right. He's taken a set off Mango. But
I think that's actually really good, like a really good thing to like note is the video analysis, being able to look at your flaws and your mistakes and be like, yeah, I did that, and like, analyze why did you do this, so you can kind of learn from it. Because I feel like, even for myself, I struggle with it a little. I've gotten a lot better at it, but like going back and watching videos where you lose, it can be a little mentally exhausting, because you know that you could have won, you could have done better, but you made these mistakes, and instead of being able to look it in the face and be like, yeah, I did that, I made that mistake. A lot of players don't want to. They just want to get their clips, their highlights, and share it with people that their friends, and be like, look how sick I am, rather than just being like, what could I have done differently in this situation that could have benefited me better.
Yeah, that holds back so many people, honestly. It's an ego thing. Like,
it is.
We play and we enjoy winning, but it's the people who enjoy the science aspect of getting good at anything, the learning aspect. Those are the people who really succeed, and especially in the long run. Like, there are a lot of games that benefit offense, and especially nowadays, fighting games are being more and more like spectator oriented, where if you build the game to benefit offense and mix-ups, you are going to get a game that more people will enjoy watching, because games will easily get dry if they benefit defense. So we'll get games like DBFZ, which are really offense oriented, where if you lose neutral, you're gonna hold maybe 4 or 5 mix-ups, high, low, left, right, crazy ambiguous stuff, throw mix-up, like all that's gonna be there once you lose neutral even once. If you get, like, DBFZ is all about getting caught in a block string, and once you're caught in a block string, you got to hold the mix-ups, and if your defense is amazing, you'll get out, and that's how Goichi's the best player. But yeah.
I mean, I feel like one thing that I've learned from being a part of other FGCs, like for instance, like my first FGC game that I got into was Soul Calibur, and I was Soul Calibur 4 that I first started getting competitive in, but I've been playing the series since like Soul Edge, Soul Blade, casually. But like once Soul Calibur 4 hit, and I started to actually wanting to like learn the game, understand what are combos, what are what's stun, how do I tech things and whatnot. That was a game that was really different when it comes to the term respect. Like, not so much like, oh, I respect you as a player, but like I'm respecting your neutral. Like, there will be people that will literally just hold guard right in front of your face, and then it becomes a game of chicken so much where who releases guard first and then presses a button that's possibly faster is going to win the neutral exchange. Where in this game, in Melee, for instance, respect, you have to beat it into somebody. You have to like show them that, like, if you are going to just like mess around, I'm going to take stocks off you hard, and then you have to mentally condition them in order to respect you, because otherwise people are just going to press buttons all over your face.
Yeah. What I love about Melee in particular, but most fighting games that are balanced, at least, will benefit most styles. If the game is not balanced, then obviously everyone's going to gravitate towards a centralizing strategy, such as Meta Knight, or even crazier example. I do believe that Marvel 2 is more imbalanced than Brawl. But those two games are shining examples of games that are straight up, you have to play top tier, and you have to play But even then, because what I'm getting at is the idea of style. Even then, let's say in Brawl you have a Meta Knight Ditto, the two Meta Knight players are still gonna play differently. And in Marvel, everyone plays Sentinel essentially, but even the Sentinels are gonna have different skill levels and different styles. And what I love about the idea of style is that from being in the FGC for like more than 15 years, I've learned that every style works. Every way of self-expression, if you grind it out and if you put your, if you like fix all the kinks, anything works. Like you could be a zoner, you could be a grappler, you could be rushdown, you could be a troll, you could be anything. It all works. Is what's beautiful to me.
It's just some matchups just end up being a little bit more skewed toward your favor. Like I think a good example would be like Itabashi Zangief in Street Fighter. You know, that character is, you know, grappler, SPD character, very good, but at the same time he struggles with, you know, people that are going to zone him and keep him away because he doesn't have a lot of ways to get in. But that doesn't mean that the player itself can't find a way with their particular style to get in and make those W's happen. You know, you've seen it time and time again. You know, Itabashi is taking games off top players with a character that, you know, I remember for a while, the Japanese players with Snake Eyes, they didn't think that, you know, Zangief was a threat at all. Just zone him out and whatever. And Snake Eyes straight crushed that philosophy very easily, taking games off Daigo sets. Yeah. And, you know, it's just that particular style. You know, it's just after a while, it just comes down to the matchup less the matchup than the style itself. Because if you're playing well, your style goes well, it works, you know.
Yeah, it's the science behind it, because every science, I mean, I use the word science very particularly because science is all about trial and error, and properly analyzing the errors in order to improve the overall game plan. And I think, I mean, obviously grapplers, like, let's look at a matchup like Guile Zangief. In any Street Fighter, Guile Zangief is going to be crazy because Zangief has the onus to get in or he's going to get chipped to death by Sonic Booms, right? But that's why any Zangief player picking the character knows he's going to have to learn to deal with that, whether it's walking forward and blocking, using lariats at certain times, or timing your jumps properly. Every Zangief player is going to know going into this matchup, or going into that character even, that I'm gonna have to deal with that. But
if you, the life that you've chosen, yeah,
exactly. But if you iron it out enough, it'll work. That's why I believe that Ice Climbers, for example, in Melee are viable, because essentially they have a grappler mentality. And if you
and they, I'm sorry, continue.
If you iron out the matchups enough, and if you work on your defense enough, eventually you'll be able to bully a character onto a platform, which is essentially how most Ice Climbers matchups will go. The character will be forced onto the platform, and then it's like a up air sharking game from there. And you can, like, I've taken this is old Spark, right? But I've taken entire sets off Spark with Ice Climbers up air, like, because I had no choice, right? But I worked on my up air so much that I had to win that way, because I forced the neutral to be like that at that point. He's much better now and could probably destroy me now, but that's how it was back then.
And the game really, like, also benefits people that understand, I feel, the psychological aspect of how a player works. Like, you know, being able to understand that if I do A plus B plus C, I get answer D or something like that. You know, if I'm gonna, like, I just played against Ness on net play just yesterday, and what I found was that whenever he would come down with a double jump aerial, he would immediately buffer a spot dodge the second he lands, because he thinks I'm going to try to whiff punish him. So you just bait that out, and it's just like you can mentally condition your opponent to respect certain things. You know, Falco works off that mentality very well. You know, if you're going to sit there and press buttons, I'm going to laser you a bunch, and that's going to condition you to respect me more and hold still, so I can, you know, kind of find a way to, you know, pressure you. And then you start conditioning your opponent to play these vortex games with you, where you can just start, you know, putting pieces of fear. Like, you know, Ice Climbers function very well off fear.
Yeah, that's the entire philosophy of a grappler type character. When you talk about, like, creating respect, when people do play grapplers in fighting games, like Justin Wong made a famous tweet, not famous, but a really funny tweet, where he was like, if I have a child, they will never play grapplers. That's because that's not his style. It's not Jaywong's style, right? But that's not to say the grapplers will never be viable. It's just saying he doesn't believe in that, right? But people who do play grapplers do believe, because essentially what you're doing is if you can punish someone enough times, they will be afraid to do certain things because you've punished it. But now that they're afraid to do something, it opens up the neutral and for the grappler to move forward. Which the more they move forward, the less and less options they have. So they're creating pretty much a space of fear, which is what I love about grapplers. And I don't think I could play grapplers in most games. I do play Zangief in Street Fighter Ultra Street Fighter 4. But
I played Hugo too, so I feel that.
Yeah, dude. And obviously I play ICs and Melee, which I didn't get into them because they were. I mean, I picked them up in 2006, and what's funny is that when I play Melee now in 2019, people's view of Ice Climbers is like, oh, you're a wobbler, right? I mean, I am a wobbler. I own up to it.
Yeah, but like
when I picked them up, it wasn't, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, exactly. It was a much different time. Things haven't. It's after being, the game being alive and functionally, progressing in the meta. Everyone getting better, smarter. Punishing harder and whatnot. The whole take of the game and the characters, and especially the people that play them. You see the random memes that are just like, oh, you're a puff player, and you see the hand being shaken, then you immediately wash it because it's just like you're not a Melee player, you're a puff player kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like that's not 100% in my opinion the correct way to look at the situation. But some people legitimately do look at that. And
yeah, that's what's funny to me is that, and the people's philosophies when they observe things like that and make judgment calls. What's funny to me is that in the same way that I believe all styles work, I believe all philosophies. I'm not going to say all philosophies are true, but people fight to prove their philosophy true, right? Like Hacks plays the way he does because he believes it's the right way to play. Whether or not he's right, I'm sure he believes he's right about most things when it comes to Melee, right?
Yeah.
But Mango has his own philosophy, just as Hungerbox has his own philosophy about the game. So just as people like Bobby Big Balls, who carry the mentality of most casuals, like this is the right way to play Melee. If you don't do this, you're lame. Like what's cool about Bobby Big Balls is that he's getting better and he's winning and he's doing what he can to prove his own philosophy true.
And he's not afraid to like listen to people that are just like, I don't agree with the way you play, or the way you play is like really, whatever, or the person that you are is whatever. He's able to look past that and just kind of, take the game as is. You can kind of say what you want about any player that plays like, the characters that aren't well received, like Icy's, Puff, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately the person is still going to do what they feel is the right thing to do. Like, touching back on what was it, the Jaywong comment that you made is like one thing that I really liked about the fear aspect of that is the Jaywong factor of he always goes low, and that in itself is a mix up. Like that's already creating fear and vortex. It's you know who I am, my legacy, what I'm capable of, and how many people I've come through to get to the skill level that I'm at, with all the amount of W's, and that in itself is creating a mix-up. It was the same thing with like DP and our community. I'd always wondered, why do you do these things that like aren't safe, are really punishable or whatever? And people are, it's just that, it's the Jaywong factor. People respect him, they're afraid of him.
And that's really cool. That's one of the things about fighting games that's beautiful. Like not only is everyone free, like no matter the game, no matter how balanced it is, no matter what character people are playing, people will play to their beliefs, and they will, and it's a matter of like winning, right? What's really interesting, something I always love to talk about on the podcast is AI. I really have been getting into how it works, and that what I've learned is pretty much that AIs are the master of solving a closed system. So if you give an AI the rules to a game and you put it in the game long enough, it will figure out the best way to play. But because we as humans are not AIs and we pit ourselves against each other, everybody has their own philosophy, everybody has their own game plan, everyone wants to prove it right. The AI, the way neural network AIs learn is they're basically doing the same thing, but a million times faster. They do like AI neural networks have like weighted decision making, like based on successes and failures of previous decisions. So if this decision always works out, let's say it thinks it has a 92% chance of winning. Until it figures out counterplay to that. So it's constantly figuring out counterplay. So what AIs are doing are essentially doing exactly what people in this tournament scene do, but a million times faster. So what's really cool about that is that each person that I see expressing themselves in Melee or whatever fighting game, or any game for that matter, carries that like game sense, that game plan, that game knowledge on a certain level. And we're all shooting toward that top echelon of being the best. Now AIs are able to do that on their own because they play against themselves. That each game is its own entity, and they're able to solve it in time. They can solve it. They'll pretty much figure out the meta. And we're seeing it already in chess. We've seen it in Go, and now we're starting to see it in Dota and StarCraft, where AIs have defeated the best human players already.
I do actually remember they did something in Ultra Street Fighter 4. Someone made a AI that functioned and felt like you were playing against a real person, and they basically made this AI who ended up being the Ken player. They had him go through ranked and against real players, and the real players didn't know that they were playing against an AI. They just thought they were playing against a Ken. And sometimes the AI would lose, but it was more or less able to beat a lot of the players because
that's cool.
Yeah, it was a really very fun project because they made it particularly to where it wasn't like, oh, you respond this way, AI sees it, reacts in a millisecond kind of thing. They made it to where it would still have to like process the information that is given to it, therefore to emulate a sort of a player mentality of, okay, you've responded with a fireball, maybe I'll respond with a fireball, maybe I'll jump over it, maybe I'll use a heavy Tatsu with projectile invincibility to get my way in, whatever.
It's funny too because you essentially have to nerf AIs because humans are limited by reaction time, which is numerically like limited. We know that human reaction time, visual reaction time, is between 0.2 and 0.3 seconds, on average at least. Some people might be faster, some people might be like outliers to that, but generally we're within that range. I'm on the lower end. Like my reactions are pretty slow. I have like 280 millisecond reaction time on average. But what's funny is that when AIs play, they do have perfect reaction time, and sometimes if you want to get that human-like feel, you have to basically nerf them and say you have 15 frames latency in your reactions. That's going to make you human-like. They had to do it in the Dota. Well, no, not the Dota. I believe it was a StarCraft AI where they had to limit it to a certain number of actions per second, because if you have infinite actions per second, your migra is gonna be.
It's just gonna crush the person because it's not gonna be so much fair. Reaction time being so important in like every type of competitive game.
Yeah, and bringing this conversation back to humans. It's funny because we're pretty much on the cusp of like having AI like take over a lot of fields.
Actually,
yeah, which is fun to talk about. But going back to fighting games and going back to humans, I really like that idea that AIs are designed after the way our brains work, and what we can learn from them is that they do the processes faster, and it shows us which processes are correct. That eventually, in the long run, maybe, let's say, now this is just a random, sort of a random evaluation, but let's say Puff is actually the best character, and you have to play Puff in order to win. And AI could solve that, right? Let's say that's the determination that the AI comes to. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but what we're all trying to do.
Chokenator breaks records.
I just got like a stream notification. Oh, that was you following my stream.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
That was loud. Anyway, like, what was I saying? Oh, let's say an AI believes that Puff is the best character or whatever. That eventually, if the AI is right, then the Melee community will play for 100 years and eventually come to the same conclusion that the AI made faster than us. And going back to humans, the thing about philosophy and self-expression is that everyone is working toward that. We're constantly working toward reaching the top. And what's sort of a travesty to me is that people do have to retire eventually, because I'm very sure that Armada's Peach will scrape the floor with 99.99% of players still. He would still be getting top 3, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, it's almost as if like lost technology, you know, like that entity is now extinct from people's like observation. It's like an animal that went extinct, you know. It's like we can't study it anymore.
In a way, yeah, because like, you know, he's got so many things that he, you know, when you were talking about styles, that he revolutionized with his own philosophy of how to play the game and what is the correct way to respond to some of these matchups, some of these interactions that you would find yourself in.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's only so much that you can do to emulate that, you know, and that's, I feel like that's the right word, you know, to emulate, not to mimic or to copy, to simply be able to try to emulate, because nobody is going to be able to, you know, play exactly like, you know, Armada, unless you actually made like an AI that studied all of his videos and therefore would be Armada. But
that would
like,
be sick, actually.
Yeah, and I remember they did I think they did a while ago. I think it was at Smash the Record. They made a Fox AI that would basically, you know, it had preemptive scripts built in, but it would basically try to respond to any situation that you would put it in. And it was basically just, can you take 4 stocks off of the bot? And it was like a line of people that would try to play against it. And it would just, you know, destroy everybody. You know, you had a few stocks that were taken, you know, after like 3 players have been destroyed or whatever. And, you know, eventually you're just going to land a hit or something like that. But like, you know, the script that it's able to function off of is, you know, what the bot, you know, has been told is the correct way to respond to things.
So that's a lower level AI, right? Because it's not going to learn; it's just following a script. And what was funny about that when I heard about it too, it mastered a closed system. Like it was only allowed to play certain matchups, and it only played FD, right? Yeah. Like it knew the Fox Ditto, it knew the Marth matchup. I believe it knew the Sheik matchup, and it pretty much wrecked everyone, right?
Yeah. Like a few people took like, you know, a stock or 2, but again, that's after like, you know, you've already gone through like 3 people who have attempted and gotten 4 stocked or whatever.
Yeah, that's really funny. And what's cool is that I mean, it seems like it's hard to test in fighting games, and I don't know if people who like write neural network AIs would be interested in like really testing them out in fighting games. But I believe there were a couple people who did a melee Falcon AI using a neural network, because neural networks are the ones that learn. And it was really cool where I believe the Falcon had instant reactions, so that's kind of not realistic. But it was whenever, because it was playing against itself, and whenever one of the AI Captain Falcons would do a neutral air, which is one of the best moves to use in neutral, the other Falcon would react with forward smash as an anti-air. And it basically, and it spammed forward smash a lot. Like it did it a lot. And what I noticed is like, man, that move is actually pretty good. It has a lot of reach. It does anti-air if you do it at the same time that someone does an aerial. And it's basically the strongest anti-air, because someone could die at 70 if if they miss a DI. And I was like, man, that's a cool idea. And that's what I like about AIs, where they will just do stuff that like they will solve something and people will be like, hey, that's a cool idea. I'm gonna use that.
I kind of like it as well, because the whole usage of forward smash obnoxiously almost, because it kind of just, you know, AIs will be able to basically destroy the term of viability, of just like, is this move viable? Because it's like, maybe not in competitive play for us humans, but if you can just simply respond to situations and be like, this is the correct option, I'm going to just do a dash pivot angled forward smash to anti-air your nair or something like that, then, you know, viability is no longer a factor. It's you don't have to worry about like, should I do this? Is the risk reward like worth it? There isn't a risk reward. There is simply, this will beat out your option because I reacted instantly.
Yeah, the cool thing about how neural networks learn, quote unquote, is the evolution is very literally evolution, the evolution of the strategy, because they randomize. It's just like Darwinistic evolution, where it's random mutation that will cause things to like essentially with animals, DNA is basically trying stuff by randomly mutating. There's no thought to it. It's just a random idea. So AIs don't have a bias. Like they do have a bias in the sense that their game sense is going to build their decision trees just like we do. But the idea that we should never do something is tossed out by an AI because their decisions are randomized because of the random mutations. So if, let's say, Jigglypuff should never rest when you're far away from your opponent. Obviously, that's true, but the AI is going to do it anyway because it's randomly making the decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's going to throw out the bias eventually at some point in order to fully explore every single option. So they will build game sense, but they will still, no matter what, like randomize. And I think people need to throw out their biases in a sense where, like, never say never type of thing, you know?
Because you can find certain, how many times have we watched like games or sets where someone had done something that just did not make sense, but like that's like literally the entirety of Mango half the time. Why would you ever do that?
Right.
Like I've seen like IBDW like make Twitter posts. It's like, I'm so tired of trying to analyze Mango's videos because half of the things he does doesn't make a single bit of sense and should never work, and yet here he is, kind of thing. And it's just like he's the personification of just like play the way you feel. Like it's a mood. It's not. It's obviously it's more than just a mood. There's experience. There's knowledge as well. But it's a gut feeling. When he plays Fox or Falco, I'm sure that there's like some bias of like matchup or something. But half the time, he'll just play Fox for like a year or two, and then all of a sudden he's no longer in a Fox mood, he's in a Falco mood, and it's just a simple sway of mood.
Well, yeah, obviously, I mean, I've watched a lot of Ginger's videos, and he does a lot of good analysis on Mango. He's probably the best analyst on Mango there is. Yeah. And it's funny because when I watch Mango, a lot of it makes sense to me because I mean he's a lot of our spirit animal. Like what he does is like what I wish I would have done, And there's obviously a method to the madness, and what IBDW is saying is probably true to him because he just doesn't see the game the way Mango does.
Which is why styles are styles.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about that is IBDW, whatever he's thinking, could probably be better in the long run if he continues working on it. So. I love Mango, and I actually recently watched the sets at Mango Birthday Bash.
Yeah. Those were incredible. So one thing I really I saw SFAT even touch upon it when it comes to what I feel has greatly improved a lot of his wins and stuff like that is his wave dash out of shield. I talked about it yesterday on stream. I think that he has some of the most solid understanding of basics that I've ever seen, like in any player ever. Like, he'll just get pressured, and instead of like, for myself, I'll respond a lot of times with like a laser out of shield rather than just being able to wave dash out of shield and kind of put myself right in front of my opponent and kind of play that pressure game, which will make them roll or do something which will condition them to respect me, to make them be afraid of me. Where Mango will literally just be like, I'm going to use this wave dash out of shield to wave dash out of shield, nice long like frame one or whatever, do shine grab, and these things may be executionally difficult, but these are still fundamental basic attributes of when you're learning the game, you're first learning the game. Wave dash out of shield, very basic, very important to do. Shine grab, another basic important thing to do. And these things are options that you can mix in there here or there. But one of the things I've seen him do against Zane consistently that's been getting better and better is wave dash out of shield rather than spending time in the air aimlessly just racking up damage poking at him. And instead he's just getting actual interactions.
Well, in my mind, it's actually a read too, because I mean, obviously every option is gonna have its own level of safety, but it's also pretty much based on your opponent too, because if let's say Zane were to do an air that Mango will usually wave dash out a shield out of, the reason Mango does wave dash out a shield is because he knows Zane is not going to throw out a down tilt right after the nair. If Zane does down tilt out of the nair, or even just does a raw grab out of the nair as to read the read, like there's always going to be levels. So that's why I really like Mango's wave dash out of shield, because he does it at times when no one else is going to do it. most Falcos are going to laser out of shield or roll or jump. But Mango to wave dash forward, it's like not only is he stealing space, he's doing it at a time that Zane's not expecting it. So Zane is forced to shield, and then the shine grab, that's where the shine grab comes in. So I really love the Zane Mango sets because they are, first of all, beautiful because there's so many levels to it and they're constantly adapting to each other. It's a great matchup to watch, but it really shows the dynamic of how offense and defense works in that matchup. Because Mango, I mean, people know that he will take the aggressive option most of the time, but just not in the way that people think. Because Mango, he's like kind of lame low-key, like in the sense that his offense is so layered and usually safe. He's just attacking but not really hard committing. Mango's not a hard committer. People kind of get that wrong, I think.
Yeah, because they just think that he's, just kind of doing things like he's not. There's plenty of thought in there that is happening. It's just it's just hard for people to grasp because those clashing styles, as we talked about, don't match up all the time. If IBDW doesn't understand it, that's that clash of style. Well, whether or not he can at one point, one day grasp that is an entirely different story. But for the current present, styles will always, clash, and it doesn't always make sense sometimes, especially if your mind is automatically preemptively scripted to be like, these are my habits, this is what I would have done, rather than why would you do that, and what did you gain from it? I feel like a lot of people don't ask those type of questions of like, okay, you did this, but what did you gain from it? Even if you got punished, what was the thought process of why you did that? Because like hypothetically, if you do something and they get punished, not a lot of players would be like, okay, he did that, he got punished for it. There'll be a few people out there that'll ask it, but like some people need to ask themselves, okay, even if you had gotten this, like you got punished, what was the gain from it? What would you have gotten, kind of thing?
Yeah, that's
looking into that hypothetical.
Yeah, that's where I think proper science is. That's why I think it's the best way to learn, because it's all about looking back at something and understanding it properly, like understanding the why behind anything that happens. That's why I really appreciate that higher level analysis is coming out from players like Ginger, people like Rishi, people like Sammy. Those guys are just on the forefront of not only analyzing the game, but breaking it down and sharing it with people. So far in my eyes, from what I've seen, they are some of the best at it. And to me, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, it's cool.
Okay. To me, actually being a top player will give you more credibility because you've been there. But I'm sure there are some analysts out there like Turned Down for Walt. I don't know if you've seen his YouTube videos. He has some good melee analysis videos. Yeah, there are people. To me, being a top player will increase your credibility because you've definitely been there and you know what you're talking about.
I've seen people constantly talking about like mainly right now I feel like the flare for a lot of people has been with Drug Fox. A lot of people are willing to pay a lot of money to have Sammy talk about what they're doing and stuff like that, because the way he building block breaks it down, so to speak, is just so easy to grasp. It's not too complex, but it's not too simple that you're overlooking things that are of the larger picture. He just seems to have such a good way of making people understand. Okay, and then not only that, it's not simply just how you break it down. It's the way that you put it and the way that you present it to people that is also like a good positive feeling. He's got a lot of good energy about him, so to speak, that a lot of people really, really appreciate and respect. It's not like super over analytical, super critical, that it makes people feel bad for making these mistakes, because we're all human and we're going to make mistakes. That's the whole idea of, progressing and getting better in the meta as it, goes on through time, and making people, even unintentionally making people feel silly or unintelligent or whatever for some of the decisions they make, can be a bit off-putting. But he doesn't seem to have that. He has that right in the middle. And I know Rishi and Ginger have that exact same like type of flow, maybe a little bit different, maybe not so left or right, maybe more in the middle or whatever have you. But those people, when they talk about stuff, they make people feel good about the analysis. They'll come out of that analysis and be like, dang, I really learned a lot about myself and what I can improve on. Because a lot of people will ask really, really broad general questions, of like, what could I be doing differently? Instead of asking yourself, what could you be doing differently, give me a scenario of what you struggle in, like, oh, what could I be doing differently, rather than ask that, like, hey, I did a wave dash out of shield here, I got punished for it. What do you think I could do differently? Now, there's a specific, like, general pointed question that doesn't seem so. It doesn't. It's easier to answer, because I have people that ask that to me as well in my chat. Hey, what could I be doing differently? Have I improved, or something like that? And it's like, that's, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not meant to be. It's not meant to be so vague or whatever. It's just that some people just don't understand that they are. Specific questions are so much better to answer, because you know where you're going with the conversation.
Well, I think that's true, but also because I recently got into coaching, and I coach Ultimate players now. It would be hard for me to coach Melee players. I could, but I believe that Melee players have better resources than me, and they can pretty much learn the game on their own. They probably don't need my help. If anything, I would only be able to help with mentality and solving problems. But as far as learning the game, I feel like Melee players have really good resources already. As far as Ultimate, I feel like the content out there is not really good at teaching people yet. Even Zero's content is like, it's okay,
Yeah, because a lot of people don't. I feel like in Ultimate, a lot of people are just like, how do you say, it's they know what's working for them. It's like, I have people ask me about, like, box stuff or whatever, and sometimes I don't know how to answer their questions, not simply because I don't know how to do it, but because I've learned it one way and it's ingrained into my muscle memory. But now when it's asked of me, I don't know how to properly portray it, because then I have to almost like relearn it in a sense. It's just an instinctual, natural thing that happens, rather than I have, A plus B plus C equals D, kind of thing.
Yeah, and what I have learned from coaching Ultimate, I've coached a couple beginners now. Well, one's not so much a beginner. They've been going to tournaments. Well, for them, 6-7 months is a while. That's like most of Ultimate's lifetime, right? But me, who went to tournaments for more than 15 years, I'm like, okay, I have seen a lot of these problems that you're trying to solve, and I can help you. And I understand what questions to ask. But it's funny, because when you're talking about those low-level questions of like, what could I do better? What could I do differently? It's still a fair question, because their idea of the game is still so nebulous. Like, they don't have an idea of what the game is yet. Because for me, in my mind, it's essentially a bunch of equations. Like, it's a bunch of circles running around, and you have to optimize the positions of those circles in order to knock out the other circles. It's like bubble, hitboxes, like all the flair of whatever style and stuff like that. At low level, it doesn't really matter. Just trust your instincts is what I tell a lot of newer players, because their instincts are going to lead them to somewhere that's probably a solid take.
Yeah.
Like, there was this player that I coached this week. He's a Mario player in Ultimate, and he was telling me like, oh, I feel like my defense is not good. I feel like I'm overextending too much. And I watched his videos, and I actually played with him online in Ultimate. And what I learned is that his instincts are actually pretty good, and he should double down on his offense more. And that benefits Mario in Ultimate, because he's so much better as a character when he's at close range. His frame data is so much better than other characters. So the conclusion he came to was different from the one that I came to, because I recognized, you know what, you're actually fine. You should actually clean up your offense and make it even more powerful. And that's what's going to benefit you more than trying to figure out, building a better defense, because Mario kind of sucks defensively in Ultimate. So that's just what I figured out for him.
And understanding, like, I still myself, like, I'm still learning how to do, like, because I think some of the most, like, my two traits about myself when I play, like, Melee, is that I have an obnoxious amount of tech skill, and then my defense itself is pretty darn good. but I don't think that I have as good fundamentals as I'd like to, or being able to trust my instincts. And I just had yesterday where I played against a Peach player, and I kind of got like a read on how they play based off of game one. It was close, but after game one, I decided to switch to my Falco rather than stick it out with my Fox in the Peach matchup, and I even stopped myself from even trying to explain to stream why I was making this decision. I was about to get into it, but he was like, you know what, never mind. I'm not even going to bother trying to explain this. I'm just going to trust my instincts and go for this. And it ended up working out, and I felt good about trusting my instincts for once, and it leading me to the answer that I wanted to.
Yeah.
So being able to like trust yourself to make these mistakes if they happen or whatever is really important for a player, because a lot of times that retrospective view comes into play. It's like, oh, I should have done this, I should have stuck with Fox, rather than just being like, I made a gut call, I listened to my instincts, it didn't lead me to the place I wanted it to, but I'm happy that I decided to actually listen to myself for once, rather than arguing with myself in my head, and trying to be stubborn about it.
Yeah, I really like the idea of instincts, because, like I said, people are not AIs, and people's perception of the game will never be quote-unquote complete. Maybe 100 years from now, after people have been playing Melee for 100 years, maybe after AI simulations have been done on Melee, but as of right now, people's idea of how the game should be played won't be complete. So an instinctive decision is basically what I was talking about with the kind of randomization, the mutation type of thing. It's like, I feel this is going to work, so I'm going to try it. And trusting that decision is basically a gamble. But that's what's cool about fighting games, is that you can gamble and you can get away with it because people are not ready. And maybe people are ready and they will expose you. But at the end of the day, that's how people get better, is by like trusting in that. It's basically putting up a hypothesis, right? Like my brain tells me this might work, so I'm going to do it. And if it fails, it fails, And that's why I love seeing players who have that audacity. Like, they're just going to do something, and it's like, oh, shoot. And what I love about Fox in particular in Melee is that if Fox is running forward, like if a Fox player is thinking, I just want to get an up smash right now, and that goes through a lot of Fox players' minds. But what's funny is that a certain amount of time it's going to work. Like, maybe this person's going to press a button, maybe this person's going to block, maybe this person's going to short hop and then run into the up smash. Or maybe they're going to try to avoid it, so what I'm going to do is run even further forward and just up smash, right? Because I'm going to catch their back dash or the wave dash back or whatever. Or let's say someone shields. I'm going to charge my up smash, and I'm going to let it go at this weird time that I think they're going to let go of shield, And that's what I love seeing in fighting games, is those like kind of nebulous moments where maybe two people are shielding, who's like the chicken game you were talking about, who's going to let go, who's going to move forward? Is someone going to attack? Are they both waiting? Like, those are very human moments that I really love seeing. Like, for me, in my mind, a Fox running forward and deciding to up smash is a really good example of it, because it just might work,
And the reward for it is so high that it's just like, why not? And especially depending on the context of, where your percent's at, the stocks, et cetera, that risk, could benefit you and could give you that confidence boost that you need to be like, I made a gamble, I trusted my instincts, and look what it got me.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful for the mentality. Actually, I just saw on Twitter from this one player. I can't remember his name, but he plays DBZ. His name's Esteban. He's a really good player, and he made a post about scramble situations, and he's like, the best advice I can give you about scramble situations is, if you're in a scramble situation, it's a gamble that you're in, and you should take the gamble that you feel is right, because no matter what, you're going to like make a mistake one way or another, whether it's in this situation or if it's in the next round or the next game, the next set. So why not just go ahead and do it, and then just don't look back at it? And if it doesn't end up working out, whatever, man, that is literally the name of the game. But trusting yourself in those scramble situations and believing in yourself is really what you're looking for here.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because there's a concept I learned recently called Bayesian thinking, Bayesian. It's like probabilistic thinking, and what's interesting is that in Pokemon, competitive Pokemon, because it's turn-based, you can plan everything out because everything's calculated. But even in Pokemon, there are reads because, let's say, like especially in competitive Pokemon, they play doubles format, and let's say one Pokemon uses Protect, and if you have both of your Pokemon attack that one Pokemon and the other person uses Protect, you're screwed because you just did 0 damage, and then their other Pokemon is free to destroy you, right? So Pokemon is all about probabilistic thinking, like what is the most likely thing here, or what is my opponent most likely going to do. So there's a rock paper scissors element. So even in Pokemon, which is turn based, you have scramble situations, and you just have to trust your gut. Like you just have to, like, even though you could do the thing that's most optimal, like it will give you a 65% chance of winning, my opponent just might read the 65% chance of winning, so I should do the other thing that has a 35% chance of winning, you know? Like,
yeah, there's actually, I believe someone was talking about, and I think Zane's even touched upon it, of just like sometimes just randomly doing things like, that scrubby forward smash that you can't stand, like seeing other people do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's what's good, because you mix in the, like you start off, you're doing, the optimal place, quote unquote, and then you decide to, be like, you know what, screw this, I'm going to do the dumb option here.
Mm-hmm.
And look at that, it just worked, because most of the time, not most of the time, but a lot of the time, players will assume that most players will want to do the optimal stuff, not simply because it's the right thing to do, but because it's pleasing to the mind to know that you have practiced enough, you did the set play option, and you got rewarded for it. So throwing in that dumb option there is a huge like flip around, and it's confusing for a lot of people. Why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes another thing that makes fighting games really fun, because that's why a lot of like bottom level players are kind of basically impossible to read, because who knows? I mean, usually they will just do something over and over, and you can punish that. So if you play defensively, or kind of set play, like, low level players will get destroyed, but you can't predict their decisions because there's nothing to base it off of,
Yeah, Sonic Fox is a perfect example of that. Plenty of people have talked about how it's impossible to condition Sonic Fox, because it doesn't matter if you've done it 1,000 times in a row and you've punished him every single time for that, each 1,000 times, he will do it 1,001, because you cannot stifle his confidence.
Yeah,
he will literally just keep doing it, and sometimes he will respect you, but that's the mix-up right there. If he decides to do that same option he's been stuffed for 1,001 times when you've only tried to stuff it 1,000 times, and then this next interaction he gets stuffed like 3 times, and then on the 4th one you're like, well, he's not going to get conditioned because that's Sonic Fox, and then all of a sudden he respects that option that you're stuffing him with, and then this is a new vortex, this is a new mind game. That's what makes that player so scary, is that you can't what is it, how do I say it, you can't make him respect you. You can't make him fear you. He is going to do what he feels is right, and that's a very powerful skill that not a lot of people have. It's why Sonic Fox is able to go and play all these games, not simply because he learns the game properly, but because he doesn't have any fear, and he's willing to take those risks, those gambles, and be like, yeah, I did it, whatever. And he just moves on with it. Now a lot of people will sit there and torture themselves, like, why did I do that? Why would I ever do that?
Yeah.
And, that's not always the right call,
Yeah. That's why
you're human.
It's you can say that top players in any game are people who are figuring out like the chess problem, like perfecting the situation. But you can also say that top players are also random, because they can be. Because that's how to solve problems, is by randomly thinking, oh, maybe this is going to work. But this is why I'm really... I've been enjoying... Because every time a Pokemon generation comes out, I try to, dabble. And so I have been playing a little bit of Generation 8 Pokemon. And trying to figure out the meta and stuff like that. And Pokemon is what really got me into, like I said, Bayesian thinking or probabilistic thinking. If you think in terms of probability, it really helps decision making, and helps you read decisions. Because what I've learned is that what makes a game competitive is that everybody has the same set of tools in the very beginning, especially in fighting games. Character select is such a huge thing that's really hard to figure out, especially when a fighting game comes out. So usually people have an idea. People who are veterans in fighting games will pick a character and be like, oh, this character has some broken stuff, I'm going to use it. But in the long run, there still could be anomalies with players like Axe and Amsa, who, if you dedicate enough time, you're going to be able to figure out the character's strengths, play to those strengths. So tier whores and character loyalists, like low tier loyalists, both are viable. It's another thing where like anything can work, because we all have the same set of tools in the beginning, and we kind of have these nebulous ideas of what might work, or we might just go with our gut and pick a character we like. Whatever you're doing, I believe, like as a coach especially too, I like believing that what the player is doing is probably right, and I'm not going to try to influence them any certain way, because I think that if they master the way they are, they're going to succeed.
Yeah, and I in some of the other fighting games that I've played, when I was coming up and learning in those particular communities, I had this one coach with this character that I really wanted to play in Dead or Alive, and it was Akira from the Virtua Fighter game, and he was in Dead or Alive 5, and I had this one person who was very, 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 very good with him, and I wanted to understand why he made some of the decisions he made. I wanted to play the way he played. I wanted to get the punishes that he wanted to, that he did, and one thing that he did, he gave me very limited help and very limited practice. He would give me just enough to kind of push me out the door, but then he would stop helping me, because he's like, I don't want you to copy my style. I want you to take the tiny bits of stuff that I've given you and use that to create your style.
Right. And this is what Bruce Lee figured out in the 70s, Yeah. I don't know if you're into martial arts, but that's pretty much what his style was, yeah. And he's like, I'm just gonna use what's useful to me, and my body works this way. But if you're a bigger guy, maybe you'll want to do jiu-jitsu, or maybe you'll want to be a kickboxer. If you have longer legs, like, it really just depends on who you are. And that's what I like about, because I don't want to retract what I said about like low tier loyalists can win. Because if you're playing a game like Brawl or Marvel 2, that's not true, right? But basically, what I do want to say is that everyone has the same set of options in the very beginning of the game, starting from character select, and starting even with the rules, right? But probabilistic thinking, right, is basically you want to push the game from 50-50, having the even set of tools, to 100% in your favor. That's what a win is. So you're starting from 50-50 and you're pushing the game with all your decisions to 100% win. And I really like thinking that way, because it really guides decision making. So if I'm gonna coach a player who's, let's say Brawl is still a thing, and they want to get into Brawl, I'm just gonna say, just pick Meta Knight. That's what I would, as a coach, that's what I would say. Like, because that is what's proven to be the best way to win. Smash 4, I would tell them, as I'm not trying to be disingenuous, but I would tell them, pick Bayonetta, even if you're not like gonna use a character, or if you want to pick the characters as a secondary to understand them, or you should just main Bayonetta because it's the best character. Like in a situation like that, if I'm coaching a player, I would want to push them in a way that they will win. But for a game like Ultimate, where the game's actually balanced, like some person could be like a Bowser Jr. main, who we have no clue how good he actually is because the game's so young. I would tell them, just play Bowser Jr., play the way you want to play, and we'll work from there.
And sometimes I've told players, hey, you should practice Fox or something in Melee, even though they don't feel like they can be good with him or something, not simply because like I think this character is the best character in the game or whatever, but because this character has all these tools that these other characters only have pieces of. Like, he's got recovery, he's got, zero to deaths, he's got, dash dance, he's got, all these fundamental aspects about him that mid-tier, low-tier characters, or even the other top-tier characters, they only have a single piece of that whole pie, so to speak. So if you decide to learn this character at the beginning, even though it may be really difficult, you're getting basically taught the game in a broad spectrum rather than just specializing in one particular skill. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but because he offers you so much of the game all in one character, you're kind of, tackling almost like, two things in one. You're learning about the game itself, and you're learning about what are good options that you can do that other characters may only get. Like Marth, he's got great dash dance or something like that. Fox has a great dash dance. He's got up throws into combos. He's got 0 to death. He's got wave shine. Got great wave dash out of shield. He's got invincible ledge dash. All these little tiny individual techniques. There's a character out there that has maybe a few pieces of it or just a piece, and he's going to be able to teach you all that stuff. And then you can kind of work your way down into the other characters and be like, okay, now that I've learned this in a broad spectrum, I can kind of pick the character that I actually like.
Right. Yeah, I think that is a good way, because a lot of times, because people have asked me that question, like, how can I get better? And if they don't play Fox, I ask them, hey, do you play Fox? And if they say no, I'm like, pick up Fox. Because of that, because of exactly what you said. But there's still some people who are just absolutely going to refuse to do that.
And then there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, there's totally nothing wrong. But what you're saying is totally right. That he just like in one small package offers you a ton of the game that you would probably never figure out if you played a different character. And that's why people
it's so slow.
Yeah. And that's why people will tell you, oh, Hoggerbrox's secondary sucks. But it's because he learned the game in a different way. He's still the best player in the world, I don't think anyone would argue against Hungrybox number 1 right now, even now.
People want to because they just don't like him, but like the thing with me is that I don't care if I don't like you as a person. I will never take away your skill. I will never deprive you of that because you've worked for that you've proven it time and time again. There are results, there are videos. It doesn't matter what I could say about the person itself. He is the best player in the world.
Yeah. And Hungrybox, it's not like he doesn't believe in Puff. He doesn't believe Puff is number 1. And that's a cool thing too, because a lot of people believe that you have to play the character you think is the best character, which is not true at all. But he learned the game with Puff. He's mastering Puff, continuing to master Puff. And I like looking back at old Spark, because he was one of those players that I tell him like, hey, pick a Fox, and he didn't want to. He's like, I believe Sheik is number 1. I want to prove it. That's still his goal to this day. And
he's continuing up that ladder. Like I remember, old school Spark and stuff like that, and it's been a crazy wild ride to watch him slowly, progressively, but surely go up that ladder and prove just that he believes the character is the best, and he's taking games off top players, like you've said, sets, results, and his confidence is growing. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to practice it, understand it, and it's just like that type of confidence in yourself. And stubbornness isn't the right word. I don't even think it's just the firm belief that this is the character for him, and live like ride or die type of character. He's going to stick by it, and that type of loyalty is something that a lot of people don't have. I can't tell you how many people I've met in my time of mainly the Smash community that have these character crises, that cannot stick with the character because it doesn't get them the W that they want. They try to get the W and it doesn't work. Oh, this character sucks or whatever. It's like, does the character suck, or is there something about the way that you're using this character that is holding you back? Maybe the character struggles in these matchups, but could you find a way to make it work one way or another with diligence and practice? Yeah. It's going to be harder. It's going to make you struggle more, and you're not going to get that W every time like you want. But what you're going to learn from it is how to, believe in yourself in these 1 to 3 stock, situations where you have to make the comeback.
And what you're talking about, when you said stubbornness isn't the right word, I'm like on the opposite end. I'm actually very fickle. I mean, I played Melee for like a long time, and I switched mains a bunch of times. And the only reason I really played Ice Climbers is because at the core of who I am, I'm a cheeser. Going back to when my sets I played with you and PM, I am.
It's good.
I'm a cheeser, and that's what I enjoy the most.
It's
playing
about
Smash.
having fun and playing the game, and I respect that. Not enough people like think about enjoying the game.
Yeah, and that what I've learned is that's who I am. I enjoy doing the strategy that's easy and broken, and because it takes away time that I have to spend solving everything else. I'm not a hard scientist. I'm not like, even though I know that's the right way to go, I'm the type of person who will like, I will try to throw a wrench in their system and try to do something really weird and cheese them out of their win. Like as an ICs player, I was really trying to figure out IC scientifically, and I was getting the best results when I was doing that. But now I'm actually a Falcon main, and when I was retiring from Melee, something that Spark and Azel kept telling me is, well, Spark in particular, he kept telling me, hey, if you want to play Falcon, just play Falcon. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so I was playing just Falcon. Like, this is right before I retired. No, like a little bit after I retired, when I was like, really, because Melee, you can't just quit cold turkey. You have to fizz out if you're actually gonna quit. I can finally say I'm retired from Melee. And I played it like once this month, and then my last tournament before that was in May, which was basically sort of a bachelor thing for myself before I got married. But now I play Falcon. I would say that I'm a Falcon main, even though my ICs are probably still better. But the reason I picked Falcon is because he was a character I got the most enjoyment out of any character. And I had played all the characters. I even believed that Marth was the best at some point, and I know Nintendo went that route. And he still goes that route because it seems to fit him. But I tried it, and literally the only reason I quit Marth is because I couldn't pivot. I was like, I couldn't do the one frame pivot grabs, and I was like,
that stuff is hard. But like,
I was like, screw this.
Yeah, at the same time, but you decided to follow your instinct of I enjoy this character. I like this character. It's what makes the game fun for me. And why shouldn't I enjoy the game? Like, if I'm going to spend all this time playing it, I'm not going to sit there and, sweat myself to death. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to play the game, and, I'm going to learn from it. And Falcon's a great character. He still takes W's. Look at Johnny, Nunn, all those players. They're pushing the game.
2019 was definitely a year of Falcon. Like, he's shown that he could win.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's funny too is that I still love Ice Climbers, right? I still would play that character, but the way they evolved in the meta is that it wasn't how Ices played that turned me off. It was the way that Ices forced other characters to play that made the game boring for me. I'm like, okay, if this option is so strong that everyone's gonna platform camp me, I can't enjoy this. I still enjoyed playing them on the offensive, but it's like, if I have to chase everyone down all day, I would rather do something else,
Like, why do that when you can literally just like stomp them 100 times into oblivion, even if it ends up killing yourself? That's like more fun because people are going to camp you, and when they see a Falcon, they're just like, I'm gonna go in.
I mean, it depends. Some people will still camp Falcon.
But it's less because there's not like, you can get the air wobble, quote unquote, but you're not like, there's something more that people are more internally okay with getting air wobbled in comparison to, I got grabbed, sit here and take this fucking like 100% damage. And some people won't even do that. I'm one of those players that, like, I know you can mess up the wobble even if you're already going through it, but sometimes if I get grabbed like that and it's been about 30-40% or something like that, I'll just pause, be like, you got it, I'll take the stock, cool, whatever, and I'll uphold my momentum, and that's that. But that doesn't mean that I'm gonna just sit there and let myself get upset over getting grabbed. For a long time I told myself, just don't get grabbed, because I remember I asked Dr. Brain like one time, like how do you always just seem to beat like Dookie or Chokenator or Toucan or whatever have you with Sheik, because
he never took a set off me with Sheik.
Yeah, and it's funny too, but it's like his response is just don't get grabbed, and I'm just like, all right, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And over the years, I've come to learn that's not really how it works, but it's
well,
a
it is
that,
actually.
I mean,
coming from an IC's main for that long, it is.
I mean, like I've always believed that it's like just a don't get grabbed situation, but it's just like I feel like maybe it's more so that it's not the how do I say it? It's not the overall. It's the overall right answer, but for me as a person, it isn't the right mentality. Because for a while I followed that mentality, and I feel like accepting that I am going to get grabbed at some point, regardless of the situation, has made me way better against the characters in general. Like I'm not afraid of them because if I get grabbed, I know I'm going to get grabbed. Whatever.
You want me to solve ICs for you? I can tell you in like two sentences. Like, it's so much easier than people think, and people just need to get the second layer. Like, everybody knows don't get grabbed, right?
Yeah.
What is IC's only option if you're camping platforms is to either get on the platform or up air.
Yeah.
Now, the second layer, once you solve this, you'll never loosen ICs again. Once you force an up air and then punish it with a shield drop, they have zero game plan left. That's it. That's it. There's nothing left.
They have to get off the platform somehow, and if they can't,
yeah. That after people started doing that, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this character, because people are already platform camping me, like for 16 minutes, and now that shield dropping became popular and everyone's fixed their controllers and edited the game to make shield dropping easy, like, ICs just have no game plan left. Like, there's some people who might still, like, you go into the ICs Discord, they'll probably resent me for saying that, but that's just how I felt, and I'm like, okay, I would rather play someone who can actually attack the platforms.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, like, while it may not, be the overall general right answer, because I somewhere inside, I still feel that the don't get grabbed philosophy is still the way to go about it, but learning to accept that I'm human and I will make mistakes and get grabbed has lessened my fear of the character. So whenever I play against them with Fox or something like that, I'm not afraid of them, and I don't lose to like hardly any IC players anymore, and it feels really, really, really good. Because...
Let me just tell you, if you camp platforms and react to their jumps with shield drop, even if they don't up air, they have nothing. Let me just tell you this, coming from an IC's vein, like it's over.
It's rough. It's rough. I remember.
Think about this. Another mix up they can do if someone's shielding on the platform is jump, waveland, and grab, right? Just to grab the shield. But that's plenty of time to react, and you should shield drop anyway, because you'll still get under them if in reaction to the jump. It solves everything. Like, it would take a lot of layers for ICs to figure out how to beat that.
I think what ends up happening to a lot of people is just that they don't have so much the patience. It's like, one situation that I find myself in sometimes is I'll shield drop and I'll be under the platform, but the ICs will just sit there and try to spam a down smash because they think that I'm going to jump up there, and a lot of people fall for that, but I don't really fall for that game plan anymore, because I will just wait for them to respond with something, because a lot of ICs aren't going to just be like, I need to get off this platform. Somehow a lot of them are assuming that the player is going to feel that this is their chance to be aggressive, and so I ran into a lot of IC players that'll get on a platform, and that's how they'll respond. They'll just do down smash, thinking that I'm going to just jump up there, and it's a Hail Mary for sure. Mm-hmm. But some players will run into it and get hit by it, and then it discourages their belief that they can trap the ICs on platform, where I have enough Peach experience or something.
Yeah, that's
like
the Peach special.
Yeah, that's the special. That's when I was playing against Panic, Jordan. That was the one thing for a while that I would lose to. It'd be like, oh, you're on platform, let me just jump up there and shine and waveland down or something, down smash 60%. Be like, okay, let me just bait this out.
Dude, I feel like we should play a set.
Oh yeah, I'm down.
Dude, I have I can play net play, but I don't really do it anymore. But I feel like since I had you on the podcast and we talked about this so much, I would love to see, now that I've learned who you are and learned a little bit about the way you think. I'm not saying that it gives me an in-game read, but I'm saying I would love to see us play right now that we've talked about this for so long.
Yeah, I'm super down. I love just playing the game and playing against new people, and I haven't played against you in so long.
I don't know if we've ever played in Melee. Have we played in Melee?
Yeah, we have. We've played multiple times.
Okay.
I think I think like the last time I played you, I don't think you played Ices. I think that's when you were doing your Falcon thing.
Oh, okay, yeah. I sucked too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I never got to like a high level with Falcon. I still remember I actually took Azel to game 5 with Falcon in one of my last tournaments. I mean, Azel was not playing very seriously. To be fair,
Still,
that's what I know he would say that. And I don't think I'm pretty sure he wasn't. I was pretty sure he was playing at less than 50% because he was just laughing that I picked Falcon. But I actually took a game off him with Falcon, and I'm like, dude, this is so sick. I felt so good. It's probably the best single game win I ever got with Falcon. Was that game I took off Azel.
and it just feels good. Like when you feel good about the game and you build that confidence, even if you lose, that's the stuff that like really makes the game rewarding for
Yeah.
you. You can still get your ass kicked, but you're having fun, and it makes you want to come back, and you're motivated to get better. And that's something that a lot of players don't have. They stress themselves
Mhm.
to death over the W, getting, losing the players that they feel that they shouldn't lose to, and when they lose to them, it's just like, man, what has all this time and practice been for? Instead of just like, I had fun with the game, and I understand it's a very stressful situation. A lot of people, put a lot of extra pressure that's unnecessary, but like that's just the name of the game, man. If you learn to just enjoy the progress that you're making, as long as, for me, as long as you're making progress, that's all that matters.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think for me, what was most rewarding about that set, and the game I took, because the progress came from VOD analysis. I feel one of my strengths is studying VODs and knowing how to study them properly. I had studied Azel versus S2J, and I was like, dude, Azel always destroys me. What is S2J doing that I can incorporate? And that analysis, it took me like 45 minutes, but after I did that is exactly what caused me to take the game. And I have another story about this too, and something I will always bring up, and something Zane on Twitter finally acknowledged, or I think he just didn't know I had a Twitter. But everybody, like, one of the memes of 209 Smash is that my greatest set win was Zane. But this was when Zane was on the come up. It's funny to say because he's a top player now, arguably
exactly.
top 5, right? But my last serious set win was Zaid. After that, at EVO 2016, I lost to Diskid Boogie, and then I lost to Lord. But that was my last and probably best performance of all time. I got 97th, but that was like the biggest melee tournament of all time, 2600. So that was like, for me, top 5 percentile. That's like really, really good for me. But anyway, the reason I beat him is because Shroomed was in my pool. And I wasn't upset that, okay, NorCal's in my pool. I mean, it's just Dewan. And I know he plays Marth in this matchup, so I'm going to practice Marth versus Ices. And I still remember the tournament right before that EVO was a Foundry tournament where it was literally a Marth Ices arms race, where it was Diskid Boogie, Nintendude, and me. And on the other side was Drugong, Shroomed, and Pew Pew. And I believe Diz won the tournament, but it was the top 6 was literally Marth Ices, Marth Ices, Marth Ices. And at that one tournament, I looked at all the VODs and I studied all of them. And it's on my YouTube. Like, I have a Marth versus Ice Climbers analysis, and it's like hours long. And because I did that, I beat Zane because I was preparing for Shroomed. Well, because what's funny is that they took Shroomed out of my pool because, oh, he's NorCal, Chokenator's NorCal. But I was like, oh, Zane, oh, he's a Marth player on the come up. And people were telling me, oh, he's played against Nintendude. Oh, he's beaten Nintendude before. He's from MDVA. I'm like, I don't care. I prepared for Dewan. I'm going to use what I learned and use it against Zane. And I got the win. So for me, it's a great story because, I mean, not only is it a great story because I beat him, but also because he's a top player now and I have that pride. But it's because I studied something and it paid off. And for me personally, that's the best feeling in Smash, when you're prepared for something.
I actually have a similar story to that. When I went to I was on Smashbox before I transitioned over to Box, and I went to Gen 6, and bless his heart, his name's Benjamin, Yaoi Master 69.
Oh, I heard of
like
that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Benjamin's a beautiful person. But anyway, I had won my first round in my pools. I was playing a little shaky. I was actually kind of upset. I almost dropped a game to this one Marth player, and then I lose to I can't remember what his name was, but he was a Marth that ended up actually upsetting Dewan. And then after that, I'm in losers, and I make a few more wins happen, and then I have to play. I don't know who I'm playing against because I usually try not to know who I'm playing against because I tend to get a little bit mentally in my head. So I just like to keep it sort of a surprise for myself, so I can just be like, okay, I'm not going to psych myself out. I'm just going to do whatever. And I was just practicing, and I'm talking to Yaoi Master, and he tells me that I'm going to be playing against a Sheik who's ranked in like Oregon or something like that. And so he warmed me up, even though his Sheik isn't probably nearly as good as that particular Sheik. And he warmed me up against his Sheik, and it really helped. I 2-0'd that Sheik that I had to play, and it felt really, really, really rewarding that that practice, regardless of the fact that it was a different play style. And he told me, yeah, he's a bit of a lamer player, and I kind of prepared myself mentally for that. And I 2-0'd him. I 2-0'd him pretty decently too, and I played the matchup really well, and it was just a really rewarding thing. And I was really happy, and it had been the first time that I actually like prepared for like a set, and it really like actually won me the set, regardless of the fact that Benjamin isn't that type of like lane player.
It's so rewarding when your preparation pays off. I think that's the best feeling, in my opinion.
It felt great. I hugged him. I was like, Ben, you just got me into my round 2. Like, I've never made it out of round 1 ever in any big tournament ever. And this was like, it was magical. I felt on top of the world.
Yeah. And I've been that guy too, the sort of Prince Abu type of guy, like the warm-up guy. And that's a good feeling too, because after I retired, I had been to still quite a few more tournaments. But everyone's always telling me, hey, Andre, can I get some ICs practice? And I would always say yes. And I felt pride when they win. It happened with Rocky. He was at Genesis 5, I think, and he was like, I had already been eliminated, and he's like, hey, I got or Genesis 6, and he was like, wait, no, I missed Genesis. It's Genesis 5, and he had some ICs coming up, and he's like, yo, Choke, can I get some practice? I'm like, yeah, and I played with him on Nez's setup for like an hour or whatever. Like, it was quite a few games, and then he ended up winning the set 2-0. I was like, dude, let's go, Rocky, and let's go Chokenator, because I helped him out. It's like you can take a little bit of pride and credit for that.
Could have given him the bad practice.
Because it's not just
whatever.
Yeah, it's not just you that won that set. It was you and Benjamin.
No, and it felt good too. He was happy for me. I was happy, and it was just an overall feels good moment. And I never had that before, so I was like, wow, this is a fantastic, great feeling to know that the practice paid off, and it was such short notice too. I only got to practice for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I like that too. It's part of the arms race. It's all the other players who contribute to because every person is a amalgamation of all the sets they've ever played, which includes everyone else they've ever played. And that's why I truly believe the Filipino champ won Marvel 3 Evo 2012. And this was after he had the FGTV house. Have you heard of this story? Yeah, so the FGTV house, and his philosophy was that you're only as good as who you play with, which is true to a degree. Some people are able to be the best on their own, like PP, people like Left and Armada, who had only the Sweden scene. But for the most part, you're pretty much only as good as for most people, you're only as good as who you play with. And Filipino champ was literally, for many hours a day, only playing top players at his house, all like 24/7 basically. In every waking moment, he was grinding Marvel, and he deserved that win. That was probably one of the most deserving Evo wins I've ever seen of a person who worked hard for the win. And I've always believed that, and that's one of the reasons why I when I retired, I focus a lot on keeping the scene growing rather than playing. Because it's important that people actually have top players to play with, and now I'm really proud of like 209 scene pretty much dominating everything they go to. Like, I mean, I'm sorry to the SAC scene that we farm all your tournaments, but it's just how it is.
It be like that, man.
It truly
it
be.
Yeah. So I really like playing like all variety of players. Like I like playing top players. I like playing mid-level, like around my level, and I like playing lower level because there's always something that you can take from each level. Like the higher players are going to push you to think differently, in their own aspect of just like, man, this bad habit that I have is getting punished. Or the mid-level players are like, man, you kind of think like me, and this is kind of cool to fight like someone that's a little bit closer to my skill level, and kind of goes for the same stuff. You challenge your own self in a way.
Yeah.
And then the lower level players they're like the kind of, you like we talked about, you can't really condition them very much. You can't really, practice too much. You can do like combo practice, and you can kind of gauge their mental game and stuff like that. But there's still, these players are doing, options that you never would have thought of doing, because they're not quite there yet, and it's a really eye-opening experience. So there's like, I always try to look at every single player that I play against has something to offer me, and vice versa. So it's I try to keep a variety of players that I play against, but obviously you still want to play against, better players as much as you can. But
Yeah.
there's always benefit in playing every type of skill level of player. Some people, yeah, I feel like are a little exempt from that, because there are some people that I've played against that literally don't even know how to nail cancel or wave dash, and it's just like, I'm not learning anything outside of combo practice. In which case, that's not exactly, but like there are lower level players that know how to do those things, maybe not in quick successions or anything, but they're still thinking about the game in a way that you haven't, because it's just they're not used to it yet. They're not there yet.
Yeah. There is something I do want to talk to you about called the flow channel.
Okay.
It's a diagram. Let me see if I can find an image on Google for you. Here it is. I'm gonna copy the image address and post it into the Discord chat. Right there, the flow channel. And this goes back to what we were saying before about like playing people at your level or playing people higher level. But also goes back to like tournament organizing. Do you see the link?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. Is it clear? Can you read everything on it?
Yeah, anxiety, flow channel, boredom. Yeah.
Yeah. So
low, high. Yeah.
Yeah. So what this chart is showing and how it applies to fighting games is you don't want to play players that are too weak, obviously, because you won't learn anything basically, because they're not challenging your ideas at all. But you don't want to play players that are too strong all the time, because if you play someone you're just getting destroyed all the time, they're actually hindering your learning by not introducing you to more scenarios. Does that make sense? Like they're just, if they're punishing you for things that you don't even realize are mistakes, then you're not going to learn your mistakes.
And half the time, I know I've talked to a lot of players that feel like, it's not like I'm really learning anything. It feels like I'm just a part of a movie that I'm watching, and I can't really interact with that movie, and I can't implement any of the things that I've been trying to learn, because I never get the chance to learn or implement them in game, because I'm just getting stuffed so often. And there's, that's just how it be sometimes. But at the same time, there is a limitation on the skill level of players that you should be playing. I talked to one of my friends, Chris Toker, at the computer booter tournament, and he played against my one friend, Brant. And Brant doesn't go out to too much. He comes out to things every once in a while. And Chris was so excited when we were talking about it. He was like, dude, I got to play against someone that's like kind of near my level, or at the same level as I. He was really excited. He's like, I felt like I could play the game and like practice some stuff without like he was so excited. He was smiling, he was glowing. It was great.
Yeah, that's the flow channel. That's where you want to be. Obviously, you do want to play top players just to experience it. I played Mewtwo King. I've been force locked by Mewtwo King several times.
It'd be like that.
And I played players that I just wobble 4 times and I JV5 them just because I want to see if I can get the JV5. Like we've all had those moments where we destroy someone, we get destroyed. But the point of greatest enjoyment and improvement is when we're playing people that are either at our level, slightly weaker, or slightly better. Those are the most fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, you don't want to have the extremities too often. Like every once in a while isn't bad, but like it's just as you said, it's just a hindrance at a certain point.
Yeah. And this is when you were mentioning earlier. Before we close the podcast, I do want to go back to a point you made earlier about people who like the levels going into it. People who are intimidated by melee players who've been playing for 5+ years, 10+ years. I think for tournament settings, like if your goals are that high, obviously it's going to be hard, but that's why I like the idea of stuff like B leagues or women's leagues or like amateur brackets is something that people do, or free brackets. Like because tournaments are naturally going to sort you with people who are near skill level. Like if you go to losers round 1, you're probably going to fight someone who is weaker than the person who beat them, you know? So it will like naturally sort you with people who are closer to your skill level. If you win more, you're going to fight people who won more, who are probably better than the people that they beat. Probably. But that's why like a single bracket double elimination, even that is not enough practice. And people not only go to tournaments because they want to, you know, improve, but, you know, they want to play everyone. That's why I like the idea of like more casual events, like stuff like round robins. We just get more sets, you know, the greater amount of experience. And I think we need more like that. Like stuff like Smash Sisters, people will like shit on a lot, like for the concept of it. But I like it because it's like, you know, you give women a chance to play, and it's like if they enter bracket, you know, a girl might go 0-2, 1-2, 2-2, maybe because they haven't had enough chance or opportunity, and because, you know, supposedly the community is like oppressive. Like there's a lot of barriers, and and not just pointing this at women, but any player who sees the barrier of entry to Melee is going to be intimidated. That's why I think we need more in the community, like the casual type stuff, or like stuff that will sort you with players that are more closer to your skill level. You know, stuff like that. Yeah. Because we want to be in the flow channel. Like if you introduce someone to Melee and they go 0-2 at their first tournament, it's a horrible experience. They don't learn anything, and they're too shy to play friendlies with anyone. They're just never going to play Melee again. So we need to introduce people to the game in a sense where they are being optimally challenged, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's why I really think that, you know, being able to you know, play against people that are more your level are really nice, because it's just like it's not so demoralizing to feel like you don't ever have a chance, that you're never going to get better, because that's just not the right line of thought, you know. And it's also not fair to you, you know, as a player who's just starting in the scene, fighting someone who's been playing this game for years on end. Mm-hmm. Even if they're not very good in the grand scheme of things, it's just not a fair mentality. And you know, it's a great way to beat yourself up, which is not the goal.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, we used to have a lot of more amateur brackets. Like I feel like PM focused on that like a little bit more than Melee did, to be honest. There was quite a few tournaments that I went to where they did that like pro versus amateur bracket.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed those, because, you know, you go to a tournament, you go 0-2, and then, you know, you got to wait for tournament to kind of slow down or end in order to get friendlies, and you're just kind of waiting around and not doing anything, and you feel like you've kind of almost wasted time or an opportunity, which, you know, isn't always inherently true, but that doesn't stop people from feeling that way. Mm-hmm. And having that chance to, you know, play again, regardless of if it's against another person that's, you know, better than you by a lot, little, or same level, lower than you by a lot, little. It's another good feeling of having a chance and being able to, you know, give it another go, and that builds confidence. Confidence is key.
Yeah, man. I think that is a good closing note to end this on. I do want to talk to you a little bit after I stop recording, but that was a really fun talk.
That was a super fun talk. I really enjoyed that. That was a nice, like, was it like almost like 2 hours or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That was awesome. I'm going to definitely share this to the Smash groups. I haven't reached out to Sacramento Smash about any of the podcasts or anything yet. I would think they would enjoy this. Hopefully. Well, I don't know if anyone will listen to it, but hopefully they do.
I'm sure someone is going to find some joy in it or something. And if not, then, you know, whatever. There's someone out there that will. And regardless, I enjoyed it. It was great.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that's why we're doing this, because I really enjoyed talking about this stuff. But yeah, thank you. Stay on the channel because I do want to play you. But yeah, goodbye, YouTube, and thank you, Antonio, for coming on.
Of course, man.